Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone that is watching with us on Facebook. Welcome to the National Women's Empowerment Ministries Vote Baby Vote Fireside Chat. I am so excited and elated to be here with you all, as well as my experts that I have with me on the panel. My name is Elisha V. Cash, and I am the president and founder and CEO of the National Women's Empowerment Ministry. We're so excited to be here again. I'm giving a few minutes for people to begin to jump on live to our broadcast. We are just excited about being a part of the movement of encouraging the community to get out and vote. And so I am also, as the founder of the National Women's Empowerment Ministry, I'm also the host of the annual networking in red event of the year called the Red Dress Brunch. And we host the Red Dress Brunch every year. It's the networking in red event of the year where we recognize women within the community that are doing empowered, influential work. And so also I'm the author of the Little Red Networking book. And so I just wanted to take this little time to introduce myself to you, for those of you that I'm meeting for the very first time, and really stalling to allow other people the opportunity to jump on. And so for those of you that just not meeting me, I keep it real at 100. That's just the way that I do, in a professional kind of way. But I'm so excited to be on the panel tonight with some wonderful women. I am hosting this event tonight alongside the National Women's Empowerment Ministry because we are sisters that believe in empowering women to vote. We saw that there's a gap, and so what we believe is coming in and filling gaps and being the bridge across many other organizations as well to empower people to get out and exercise their voice to vote. Empowered Women Vote is a voting engagement initiative led by the National Women's Empowerment Ministry, encouraging women to amplify their voice through voting. We have created a Vote Baby Vote campaign to mobilize the community in voter registration and registration confirmation, to educate voters on understanding the ballot, to help voters plan their votes, to dispel myths about voting, and also to just encourage women mostly to get out there and understand that their voice matters, and we really need their voice and their votes in this upcoming election. One of the things we also try to pride ourselves in doing is how we can support female candidates for running for office and encourage women to turn out to vote. I am joined this evening by three lovely experts. First, we're going to start with Miss Sharice Hollis. Welcome to the Fireside Chat, Sharice. Can you tell everyone about yourself, and the work that you've been doing? First, you got to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Awesome, thank you. So as I was saying, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. I am currently the third vice president of the Georgia Federation of Democratic Women, and also the president of the Henry County Democratic Women, and first vice chair of the Henry County Democratic Party. And so we have truly been working to encourage women to get out here and run for office, supporting them on their campaigns, and a number of other things that I've done in the community with being a member of the National Council of Negro Women, and just a number of other organizations and community initiatives that I've been a part of. So I won't take too much time, but that's my intro. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and welcome to the chat on tonight. We also have with us, part of our panel is the mayor, Dina Holiday Ingram, and she is the mayor of East Point. Mayor, would you tell us about yourself and some phenomenal things that you've been up to?
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to join and share tonight on this great panel. I'm Dina Holiday Ingram, Mayor of the great city of East Point, where there's no point like East Point. And we have had some great opportunities right now. We are really focusing on equitably revitalizing and redeveloping our city in a way that respects long-term residents and long-term businesses and doesn't result in involuntary displacement. What other people call as gentrification, I believe that we can prevent, if not eliminate, the negative impacts of gentrification on our community as we continue to grow. So we're doing a lot of work around that, but critical and central and at the top of our list for the next 9 days is census turnout and reminding people that they can complete their census online at my2020census.gov or by phone at 844-330-2020. Or if you haven't completed by now, you should have received the actual survey in the mail. And so you can mail the survey in, complete the survey and mail it in for people who might not want to do it online or by phone. But what is critically important is that we count. The power of the people rests in their ability to be counted and to vote. And so fundamentally, when we count and when we are counted, those are resources that automatically are directed to our cities and to our communities to be able to provide services, as well as to make sure we have fair and appropriate representation. And so when people start talking about how communities look and what's going on, know that the census that is directly tied to the resources that we receive in our community. And if I have 40,000 residents and only 20,000 completed, I'm gonna receive funding for 20,000 and still have the expectation that we provide services to 40,000. And so it is critically important. Everyone counts, everyone matters. We need to make sure that we're counted. And then to why we're here tonight about voting, right? That is the second important awesome power that people have. And I think during this time of, this national and, international outcry to dismantle systemic racism, those who are protesting and the first duty, I believe, is being counted and voting, right? So everyone who's protesting should be those who have been counted and who are voting, because if not, we're leaving power on the table. Like that is truly the power. And so the power to vote, there people who look like us died for this right, and we shouldn't take it lightly. Aside for that, more immediately to right now, to having people in office who represent us and who care about us, who are humane, right? And understand that everyone matters. It is important that people register to vote. And in Georgia, the deadline is October 5th. And then come up with a vote plan. Are you going to vote early? Are you going to vote by mail? Are you going to vote on election day? But make a plan, stick with it, and take 2, 3, 10 people to the polls with you.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And that is a perfect segue to my next guest that we have on our panel on today, which is let's welcome Ms. Brenda Winston, who's a political awareness and involvement advocate to the panel. Brenda, share with us about the work that you've been doing and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, hey, Alicia, thank you so much for having me and for having us and doing this fireside chat. Fireside chats are very important because it brings the information to the people. And that's a big part of what I have been doing in the community as a political awareness and involvement advocate, strong member of the Henry County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, where I chair that committee, political awareness and involvement. I also am the second vice president of the National Council of Negro Women, the Henry Clayton section. So I'm very active in both organizations, continuing to push for voter advocacy, continuing to draw individuals to the polls, encouraging them to be mobilized and to understand their right to vote is the essential power that they have. And without it, they have almost no power. You almost have to look at your bank account when you vote. If you have $20 million in the bank, you probably can sleep on November 3rd. Your bank account does not reflect that. You may want to get out to the polls. because many of us cannot call the president, but a lot of us can call or get to know our mayors. And I see we have our mayor from East Point on the call with us. And so that's telling us how important local elections are. And those are the elections where we can touch our candidates. And that's things that I do within the community, encouraging people that local elections matter, state elections matter, national elections matter, and their vote matters.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda, letting us know that everyone's votes matter. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure we have a few viewers that have joined our fireside chat. If you are registered to vote, I want you to go ahead and put in the chat, I'm registered. Let us know where you are with your registration. Have you confirmed your registration? Because what I found is some people are not active voters. And so if they haven't registered or have voted in a while, we are encouraging people to go out and check, confirm your registration. Brenda, can you share with us if people are looking to go out and confirm their registration, where can they go and find that information?
Okay. They can simply go to the My Voter page, which is linked to the Secretary of State page. When they go to the My Voter page, they can see if they're still on the rolls, those who are already registered. And those who have not registered can register online as well. If you have relocated and you have changed your, you want to change your voting precinct, that website, My Voter page, allows you to change your registration as well. The good thing about the My Voter page as well, you can get a sample ballot. So you can see who will be on your ballot when you vote either early or on election day. It's important that you do that so you can know what you're voting for, who you're voting for, and to ensure that your vote matters because you're making an educated vote.
Well, that's good information. One of the things that I found, and you guys can chime in and help me unpack this a little bit, that many times, let's talk about this election. What is so important about this election? If you had to say what is standing in the balance surrounding this election, I know we should be registered voters all year round, and we're going to kind of, hone in on that and the importance of doing that. But what is important about this election? Because we have two important things going on at the same time. We have important conversations surrounding winning the Senate, and what that means and why is winning the Senate is important. And is more important than actually the presidential election as a perspective. So anybody, feel free to kind of just jump in to talk about why is it so important to make sure that you're a registered voter in this season.
I mean, our democracy is on the ballot, right? Like, our democracy is at stake. Make no mistake, this year, the presidential election is extremely critical. Regardless of what people think, my statements, unfortunately now have become not really about party, but about humanity. And you have someone who's leading in such an inhumane way, and really trying to negatively impact a substantial part of the American citizenry. Like, our democracy is at stake. It is, this election, like none other, and yes, voting down the ballot is critically important. But we cannot lose sight of the fact that if we want to continue the democracy that we all love, that it is critically important to show up at the poll and make our voices be heard. It's also critically important this year because, as you mentioned, there's a potential to gain the control of the Senate. Right now, on the day of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, Mitch McConnell and others immediately took to talking about filling her position in an election year when in 2016 they blocked President Obama's pick and said it should wait until after the election. And so all of this is politics. And unfortunately, the people are always on the short end of that. And, you know, I believe with the international, again, outcry to dismantle systemic racism, and with, you know, it took 401 years for non-Black people to call out racism, like literally say the word in public, right? Like
Yes.
before conversations that we would have, but
Yes.
to be out in the public and have this multicultural demand and outcry and protest for over 100 days and people calling out racism, that has never, ever happened before. And so, you know, I just feel like it took 401 years. I won't be here in the next 401 years. So I got to get as much as I can right now. And right now, it is critically important that we educate, inform, and empower people to understand that their value and understand that their voice does matter and they speak through their vote and that they have the ability to hold people accountable. But our democracy is on the line right now. And when we vote, we win.
Yes. Sharice, do you have anything to add? We can't hear you yet.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so what the mayor said is completely correct. This year is extremely important. We do need to make sure that we vote on a national level and on a local level, because we want to have people in office that will represent us and make the best choices for us, not just for a certain small group of individuals, but for us overall. So yeah, I definitely think that we should continue to express the importance of why everyone should vote, get everyone to understand the importance of each seat. Because sometimes people, you know, they just understand, hey, I'm going to vote for the president, but they don't understand why it's so important to vote for a particular judge, why they should even vote for the mayor, why they should vote for a commissioner in the cities or counties where they live. So we definitely want to make sure that everyone understands that.
Brenda, is there anything you want to add?
Yes, I would want to add also, chime in conjunction. Not only is it important for us to vote, but it's important to look at the people when we put them in office. We have to look at how they vote. Because if you're a U.S. Senator and 4 years ago, you decided 11 months was not enough time for a president to not only nominate a Supreme Court justice, but for the Senate to see that person or bring that person to a vote. You felt 11 months was too short a time period for that to take place. And now just 4 years later, those rules have changed. When in essence, like Senator Mitt Romney said, it was fair for President Obama to have nominated Merrick Garland in 2016, and it's fair for this president to nominate someone in 2020. The thing is, the rules were different in 2016. The leader of the Senate did not bring President Obama's nominee to the floor to even get a hearing. So now we have to look at when we put someone in office, we have to also look as to how they vote and the types of things they put in place that will only benefit a certain group of people. They say one party is concerned about policy and the other party is only concerned about winning. We have to now decide which party we're going to support. Is it the party that supports policy that betters our community, or is it the party that simply is concerned with winning?
Well, you know, I mean, for a person that is very familiar and maybe follow politics or really are really engaged in voting, you know, that may be very familiar. What about those individuals that are just jumping into being engaged in becoming a registered voter, how do they find out more about candidates, you know, to know who has their best interests? How can they see how they voted in the past? Can any of you share that insight? Like, where do they start to actually do the research?
So I would say I have two websites to kind of give some information. The Georgia State, and this is for Georgia State legislative officials, votesmart.org is one site, and the Georgia General Assembly report cards is another site that they can go on to, and they'll be able to, and that's govtrack.us, which will allow them to be able to see how each person voted on several different issues that during session. So those are two sites. Mayor, you have some others?
Yeah, I was just gonna say at the county and the local level. So the agendas and minutes are online. And so Fulton County GA.gov, and then for East Point, ours is East Point. Well, I can't even remember our website, eastpointcity.org. But on those websites, so on ours, you go to clerk of departments, clerk of city clerk, and then agendas and minutes. And it literally goes back like almost, I think 20 years. Like you can go back and look at the minutes from the meeting and see how people voted. So on the local level, it's a little more work. And you really literally have to go through each of the agendas, but the information is out there and it's available to the public. And, you know, I think it's critically important when you are looking at candidates. So like I tell people, I only get to say what I'm going to do the first time. So when I ran for council, I get to say, you know, if you elect me, I will. And then when I ran for mayor, so that was a new seat, right? So I could say, if you elect me, I will as your mayor. But they also want to know what I had done as a council member. And so it's really about that. And I often think about that when, you know, when I'm in council meeting and when we're making decisions. Can I look a voter in the eye and explain the position as to why I voted the way that I did? And, you know, people may agree and not agree, but will I be able to lay my head on the pillow at night and have peace and look at my 10-year-old daughter and, you know, still feel that she can look at me as a positive role model based on the decisions that are made? But that information is out there. And I think, you know, during this time, again, of social unrest and, you know, this really, people are really paying attention. It's critically important that we share with people how they can get the information for themselves and not have misinformation and disinformation, right? People telling you what they want you to believe about what's out there, but you being able to access it for yourself and make your own informed decisions. It is critically important that we empower people and respect people, right? Like people aren't gumball machines. You don't just go to them when you need them. Services every day. Service is the rent we pay for our room here on earth, is what Madam C.J. Walker said. It is one of my favorite quotes because I believe it. But you know, in that service, we have to make sure, and I think a huge opportunity that has been lost is making sure people have knowledge and know how and where to go get information so they can make their own decisions.
Yeah, because one of the things I found in doing this type of work when I'm in the community and I'm trying to get our community mobilized and ready to vote, a lot of times people don't know the candidates, and so they kind of will just go to the poll and maybe, you know, any, mini, money, mo thing when I don't know what their strategy is. But getting individuals the information allow them to feel comfortable and empowered to go to the polls to vote. I want to say, you know, although you know, COVID-19 has been an eye-opening experience to our community in so many different facets. I really believe that. But I really also believe that it's uncovered an opportunity, a unique opportunity for us to revisit our strategies when it comes to voting. One of the things that I just heard for the very first time is plan your vote. You know, before now, was that something that we were saying, okay, think about plan your vote? I've never heard it before. But now it seems like in so many different pockets and so many different organizations, we're all saying it's very important not only to register to vote, but to plan your vote. Does anyone want to talk a little bit about that?
Alicia, I can. I'm sure everyone can chime in on this as well. Shirley Chisholm, she ran 1972, ran for president, and she talked about the table that they set. And if they don't have a place for you at that table, right?
Yes.
You ought to bring you a folding chair. You are in the mode where you understand if you bring a folding chair to the table, that's the essence of making a plan. That is the essence of making a plan. And the reason why we make a plan now, I remember when I was 18, there was only one day to vote. Or if you were in the military, you voted by absentee, or if you were out of town, you voted by absentee. And there was just one day to vote. Now, we can speak to him for Henry County. In Henry County, we have 3 weeks of early voting from October the 12th through October the 30th. Within that 3-week span, we have 2 Saturdays, October the 17th and October the 24th. Also, we have a Sunday, October the 25th. So we have all of those days, any one of those days they can vote. Then they can also have the opportunity to vote by mail. They can request an absentee ballot. Those ballots were starting to be mailed out on September 15th. So many people have received their ballot in mail. They can choose to vote by mail. Or if all else fails, they can vote on November 3rd. Now the question is, who do we vote for? How do we vote? So if you want to know who you should vote for, that's where the My Voter page comes in handy. If you go to My Voter page, you put your information in the system, you verify that you're still on the rolls, you can click the button that simply says sample ballot. When you get that sample ballot, you will see everything that will be on your ballot this November. And you can look up any one of those candidates. We all have Google, so there's no excuse as to knowing who's on my ballot and what do they stand for. The sample ballot is a button away. If you go to My Voter page, click that button, and you will see the ballot that you will have this November. And then you can Google any one of those candidates to see their platform, see what they will address, and if their policies align with your interests, then that's the candidate you should choose. And once you make that decision, then you have a 3-week span to decide when you will vote. And if all else fails, like I said, there is November 3rd. So we have ample opportunity to overcome any voter by making sure we vote any one of those, 20-some days, and any day between now and November 3rd with your absentee ballot. Now, the absentee ballot must be turned in either by mail or in the drop box. In Henry County, there's only one drop box at the voter registration office in McDonough. So you either have to drop it in that drop box or mail it. Mailing does require a stamp, which some might say consider a poll tax, but it's 55 cents if you choose to mail your ballot. Now, we now have 3 additional days after November 3rd. The ballot must be postmarked November 3rd or before, right, for it to be counted. And they will accept those ballots up until 3 days after the 3rd. So you have to if you vote by mail, do it now and get it in the drop box, or if you have to mail it, please mail it right now.
Now, I see Kimberly put something in the chat. I'm looking at some of our stations that we have on the live. People know excuses. So tell me, Panel, please tell me what excuses do you think we're going to run into this time with persons that exercising their right to vote? What's keeping?
I don't know. There'll potentially be excuses, but there's also a lot of barriers that are being fabricated to or created to make voting more challenging, right? So this is during a global pandemic, an unprecedented time of uncertainty. We haven't had a pandemic like this in 100 years. And despite that, on top of that, we have, the economic crisis pandemic, as well as racism. There's the pandemic of racism. It's a trifecta. There's a lot going on. And I think the reason why people are saying plan is because you got to decide what you're going to do, because things can change daily with this virus, right? Yeah. And so you have to have a plan. Some people are requesting the absentee ballot just to have all options available. Like, what if something should happen, right? I say, absolutely no excuse about your vote not being counted, especially in Fulton County, because there are 20 drop box locations, right? And so if you are choosing to vote by mail, absentee ballot, you're gonna drive to the post office and mail it. I tell people, instead of driving to the post office, drive to one of these 20 drop box locations where Fulton County government is going to pick up the ballots from out of that box every day, right? So whether or not there is shenanigans going on at the federal level about snail mail and slowing mail and not, you don't even have to worry about that in our county, because there's 20 drop box locations. One is at East Point Library in downtown East Point, College Park Library. I mean, they're all around the county. So literally, if you are visiting a friend in Alpharetta and you live in East Point and you have your ballot in your bag, you're like, oh, there's a drop box. You can drop it off there, right? And so it is really there. We should be working to make sure that there are no excuses, because residents and voters know how to vote, right? And that they know what all of their options are, so that they can make a plan for themselves as to which option they want to choose and plan ahead. And I think that's why you're hearing so much about plan, because there's so many obstacles that are trying to be created to prevent people from being able to vote and then having those votes counted. And so we have to make sure, as the person posted the chat box, that there are no excuses, but that requires us educating, informing, and empowering people on how to vote and making a plan to do that.
And I will go to as far as saying that this is not the election to wait to the last day or election day to wait, because you mentioned some very valid points. You mentioned the pandemic, you mentioned the economic crisis, you mentioned the social justice, and so many things could throw us off and come as a distraction in the ninth hour. So you brought us some very pivotal things that could keep us from getting to the polls. So I would encourage everyone that is watching, let's not wait to the ninth hour. Let's not wait until election day to vote. Let's plan our vote and plan to vote early. So if you're planning to vote early, please drop me a note in the chat to say, I'm registered, I'm planning to vote early. It's about your voting plan, because we want to make sure that we're answering your questions and that we're providing the information that you need. One of the things you mentioned, Mayor Janet, about the locations to vote in your county. I'm not sure if anyone on the panel could provide information of where people could find the drop off locations in their particular county. Like, I know where they are in DeKalb because that's the county where I reside, but is there a Georgia state, a state of Georgia location for everyone to find out where those drop boxes are located?
I think that's probably more at the county level. And so Fulton County has that information online. Like, if you go to voting and it tells you how to register and all of the dates and all of that you'll be able to find it there. I've posted it several times. It is really about getting the information out, and again, letting people know how to vote. I think when you, and Brenda might know this, when you go to my voter page, there might be a link there that also takes you to the county page to be able to get to those, because they differ by county. Brenda said they only have one location. We have 20. On election day, we will have 5 new polling locations in our city. So we generally only have 4 polling locations. On November 3rd, we will have 9 polling locations. Since Fulton County added, I believe, about 90 additional polling locations, 80 new polling locations. And the goal was to make sure that each polling location had less than 5,000 registered voters assigned to it, to try to prevent the lines and things of that nature. And so the information about what the county is doing, so like the Fulton County Board of Elections, they meet, they have their minutes online, right? But that would be, I would say, for people to go to the county, their county's website.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's one question in the chat. Kimberly's asking, why do you think it's so hard to get African Americans to vote? Does anybody want to take a stab at that question?
I could. I mean, so I talk a lot. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm passionate about this stuff, but I mean, it's because we are in a country 101 years for other people to call out racism, right? So like, it is hard to get African Americans to vote because people don't feel like they're valued or that they matter, or they feel like people are just trying to game them, use them, you know, to get something. And then, you know, they might feel like I voted for somebody and they didn't do what they said they were going to do. I mean, a lot of this, you know, foundations, the impacts of slavery and systemic racism is real. And I think sometimes we jump quickly to say, oh, they crazy, they just on whatever. And it's like, nah, not necessarily. You haven't walked in their shoes, right? And you don't know why they feel the way that they do. And we are an oppressed race in this country, and it impacts all of us differently. And so I think we are trying to overcome that. And then this year, we're trying to overcome that in a year where we have an inhumane person occupying the White House, who locked babies in cages, right? Who gas protesters. I mean, like, right, just you would never think would happen on American soil by the American president is happening. And so literally, I think that's also why it's hard to get people to complete the census. People are feeling like this is absolutely crazy, right? And what do you mean? And he didn't even win the popular vote. I mean, he lost the popular vote by 3 million. What is this electoral? Like, so there's all of that on top of being Black in America. And so, you know, we can't, and we're learning this through the census. I said we have to finish strong and continue on, because we can't just talk to people when we need them to do something. Like, we need you to vote now. And so, yes, we got to do voter registration and education, but I need you to do it right now. What about in between time? What about using every day to educate and inform people and treat people with dignity and respect and value, so that when this time rolls around, they're more likely to feel like I can make a difference? And so, I mean, it's a number of factors, but I really just believe that fundamentally it is a part of systemic racism in this country.
One of the things I want to speak to is disappointment. You know, I think sometimes as an African-American race, Kimberly, disappointment in different systems keep us distanced from exercising our citizenship rights to vote. Sharice, would you agree with that, or do you have any insight of one of the reasons why you think it's hard to get African Americans to vote, especially speaking from the Democratic Party perspective?
Yes, I do. You know, voter suppression is something that, you know, we've always dealt with and struggled with. And, you know, one thing that I've always tried to do is to try to get more people engaged in our organization, engaged in the party. And they're like, okay, well, my vote doesn't matter. You know, they voted before, we had the appropriate number of votes to win, and then they still didn't win. And that comes from them not necessarily understanding the entire process. And so you try to get them engaged on a local level. And, you know, they're like, well, again, my vote doesn't matter. And so I've been trying to, and what we've been trying to do to get people to understand that collectively we can change some things. Trying to talk with the young people, because that's one of the things that I'm working on now, is trying to get the young Democrats more so engaged and involved, because look how many young people, if they actually get out and vote, they can change the world. They can change the world.
One of the things I also want to ask is
what
I've also seen is some of the polls that have come out. And one of the polls suggests that the African-American men and Hispanic men are planning to pretty much sit home and sit this election out. Can you speak to any of that and how that's going to impact, because you mentioned the collective vote, how that is going to impact the vote as a whole as well?
And so I've talked with a number of African-American men as well. And the feedback that I've received is that the party is not speaking to them. There's not anything that's on the table for them. There's no economic development that's there for them. The only thing that they talk about is criminal reform. And so, and what do you say to an African-American male who's never been arrested? You know, they've never been in jail. They've never been a criminal. You know, they're like, I'm educated, I go to work every day, I, you know, do what I'm supposed to do in society, but there's nothing that speaks to that man. So we have to change that. We have to change that narrative. We have to change it.
Well, another thing, Alicia, I think, is if we get people involved in the policy making, so they can understand how they can actually change policy and make so their lives can be better. You know, a lot of times people just drive around their neighborhood and they wish they had more green space. And they don't realize that voting affects green space. A lot of times people are at home and they say, oh my gosh, if I can just go to the library, and the library is 30 minutes away. So they should have library closer. Voting affects a library closer to your home. If your child's school is overcrowded, voting affects that. So we have to make voting very personal to individuals, to show them how every vote you cast affects certain parts of your life. You know, the airlines, they get subsidies from politicians. The oil industry gets subsidies from politicians. So everything that we do is affected by the vote. Voting affects the poverty status in the country. Right now, many people wish there would be another stimulus. They may not be following the day-to-day nuances of politics, but they know what stimulus means. When they hear that stimulus check, they wish they could get a second one. Again, voting affects some of that. So we have to always speak to people where they are. What affects them?
Yes.
Prison reform, like Cherie said, prison reform doesn't affect every black male. Believe it or not, every black man is not in jail. In fact, there are more black men in college than in jail. And we know this. So we have to then look as to that young black man just graduated from Morehouse. What can we say to him? We can say, let's help him with his student loans. There should be things in place that can probably wipe out his student loans if he does this particular service job. It's stuff like that that is affecting individuals, but we need to speak to them where they are and what's going to affect them. If I'm speaking to an ex-offender, a returning citizen, we need to then speak to him as to all his documents complete. Have he paid all his fines to ensure that he can now register to vote in the state of Georgia? And so that is the conversation we will have with him. But then the valedictorian, right, from Albany State, we need to have another conversation with him. We need to explain to him how he can get that corner office position in a building in Atlanta. And see, voting affects all of that. So we need to always marry voting to someone's everyday life.
That's good. That's really good. There was another question. Thank you so much, Brenda. Thank you, everyone. There was another question that asked about senior citizens getting help. So many of them are not necessarily computer savvy. What can senior citizens, where can senior citizens get help? And that came from Barbara.
So,
when you say where can senior citizens get help with like voting or just in general?
It just says, where can senior citizens get help? So many are not computer savvy. So I'm assuming that it must be about voting.
And so a lot of that though, we can't forget the basics, right? Phones, right? Getting the message to people in the way that they are used to or most comfortable receiving it. Calls become important. Mailers become important. My mom is 82, but she liked to have paper, and she got a lot of file folders, and she files. You know what I mean? So, as we are innovating and growing and continuing to improve, we have to remember the basics. There are a number of services that in Fulton County, a lot of the senior services are provided through our county government. We actually have about a senior center in our city of East Point, but it's run by the county, and that provides a number of services from health and wellness and lunch and breakfast. Like my mom enjoyed quite a bit when it was open, but partnering with agencies that support seniors, and we do an annual Golden Age Resource Fair during Older Americans Month in May to make sure that the seniors have the papers they need so that when they need it, they can go get it. So bring in service providers, right, that will be able to that provide different services for them to age in place and give them the information. And they might not need it today, but they walk away with a lot of great information that they can use and know where to go get resources when they're in need.
Yes, and I see she came back and she said, yes, the research on candidates. So I guess she was said to help seniors that they may not be able to navigate, like how we were giving out websites to research, certain candidates. Certain seniors may not be as savvy to do that. So that was great feedback in regards to that. Thank you so much for asking that question, Barbara. Deborah has a question. She said, "Can you speak to filling out the absentee ballot correctly? What are some common errors that voters make on the absentee ballot to get the ballot thrown out?"
I would say that the number one error that's made is not completely bubbling in the ballot form or just checking it. And sometimes it's not feeding through the machine and it's not picking it up. So that's one of the number one concerns that we had here in Henry County during the primary is that individuals were not completely bubbling in the bubble next to their choice of candidate. So, and using a blue or a black pen to do that. We want to make sure that they're doing that.
And Sharice, also make sure they sign it. A lot of individuals are not signing the ballots, right?
Yes.
That's so critical. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, making sure that you sign it. And that is legible as well. You want to print so that they can understand, your writing, see your name. But yeah, as Glenn stated, please make sure that you sign it.
So for those of you who didn't hear that, she said to please make sure that you signed your ballot, that you take your time and you fill it in correctly. I see someone else put in the chat, I was going to vote on election day, but I'm now reconsidering that. So that's great. That means our message is getting out there. I thought, what can we do to help the local elections? That was a question for Erica. What can we do to help the local elections?
So we can have the same energy, fervor, commitment, rallies, information, drives, and all of that during municipal election years as we do in state and federal election years, right? I can tell you the energy dies down quite substantially in off-year elections. So again, federal and state elections generally are in even number years, and the municipal elections occur in the odd number years. And there's literally about a 50% drop off between the number of people who come out and vote in the federal and state elections versus the municipal. And again, whether or not that water comes out your faucet when you turn it, and whether it's brown or clean, and whether or not when you flip that light switch, the light comes on, whether or not your trash gets picked up on time, whether or not your roads get paved, whether or not police come when you call, whether or not you have parks and recreation centers where your kids can enjoy and go. All of that is done at the local level. And it is so unfortunate that the local elections in some years are decided by like 300 voters, right? There's
wow. Really?
5,000, 300 voters.
300. Wow.
The total
Therese will tell you
the total
this.
may be the total voting for one ward in our city was like 700 votes. The winner by like 300 and something votes. There was an election in a city where the incumbent lost, and guess what the votes were? 58 to 56. Not
wow.
Not 258, 58 to 56.
Right.
Wow.
It is absolutely unacceptable.
It
Right?
is.
I mean, like in those seats become places where people are making decisions about what happened in your day-to-day life, and people aren't showing up to vote and engage. Those are the people that are closest to you. I promise you, the money that the federal government allocates trickles down to the local community. Right?
Yeah.
In government, in the local seats, in municipalities and local races and local in governments, those are the ones who are making the decisions about how the money gets spent when they get it. But it is, we need to have the same fervor, the same commitment, the same energy, the same, we got to get out the vote and all of that in odd number years, which are the municipal election years. And we need to continue to educate people. That is an opportunity. You know, someone asked earlier about seniors. You know, there are the senior centers. That's where they talk about people, and then they have candidate forums and things like that. There now this virtual space. I mean, I think that's a very good point that's raised. A lot of seniors are not Zooming as much as we are Zooming and doing all this virtual stuff. But you know, making sure that we are reaching people. There are a lot of candidate forums that happen locally, like at a church, at a school, a meet and greet at somebody's house, right? Those are opportunities to coordinate a group of people to be able to educate and empower and let people know who the candidates are. Local elections are critically important, and people have to understand that there is an election that happens multiple times every year.
Yes.
So we get excited about this one, but there was one in June, there was a runoff in August, there's a special election in September, there might be a runoff in that one. We got the election, early voting starts in October, then you got election in November, there's gonna be a runoff in December, the special Senate seat, I think Isaac's seat is in January. Like there's always an election going on.
Yes.
And we understand that we have to vote every single time.
Yeah. We have to. We have to.
That's right.
And especially Alicia and Mayor, especially now in this era of Black Lives Matter, our mayors hire our police chiefs. The police chiefs in our cities are hired by our mayors. So if we're not voting in local elections, we're giving up that right as to who will be your next police chief, who will serve on these various boards within the city and within the county. So it's very important to vote locally.
And I'll add to that is that we want to make sure that people understand where they live. Some people don't know that they live within the city limits. Some people don't know that they're in unincorporated areas of their county. They don't know who their House representative is. They don't know who their senator is. You know, so we want, and that's why I always ask people, what district do you live in? And they're like, well, I don't know. Well, who's your commissioner? Because that's the person that's voting and making those choices and decisions for you. And if you live within the city limits, then that's your council person is the person that's making, you know, those voting for you and making those decisions for you in that. So I always encourage people to find out, you know your address, but where do you live? Do you live within the city limits? Do you live in unincorporated? Because then that will determine, you know, who you would be looking at in reference to when it's time to vote, who you're voting for. You're going to vote for your council person during the municipal years elections, and then you turn around and vote for your commissioner for the district that you live in. So we want to make sure that people know, where you live, so you'll know who you're voting for. That's how you research the person. You got to know where you live first.
That's great feedback. Thank you so much, Sharice and panel for sharing that. Now, one of the last questions I have to ask you before we leave, because we've been talking about empowered women vote, and I believe that there is a gap in supporting women when they're running for office. And so, Mayor, I want to know what did it feel like, or tell me if you had the support that you needed. What does it mean to have support and the investment in seeing Black women run for office?
And so we lead differently, right? So women are just naturally nurturing, naturally caring. And so I'm not saying that all women look in that way, but the maternal instinct kicks in, right? We are, I think, predisposed to think about others, right? And think about how all of this is connected and how we kind of multitask and do these things. And so I think that is what women bring to leadership. When women bring the ability to care, the ability to think about people. And I'm not saying that men don't, right? But we're just wired differently. Was I supported? I mean, support is relative, and you will understand that in politics, right? Like, I got enough support to win. When I ran for council, I think I had almost 80% of the vote. And then when I won mayor, it was about 67%, about 2-1 in that race. And so I had enough support to win, but support is relative and fleeting. I think you have to earn support and you have to work for it, right? And so there's a critical importance of respecting the past to inform the future, right? And so if you are thinking about running for office or getting involved, who was around, like who paved the way? Who opened the door? Who are those heroes and sheroes in your community, and having conversations with them? Like I call them the old guard in our city. But when I ran for council, we had only been in East Point 3 years. We just relocated from Florida. And I didn't know anyone at all. But I started with, the first Black female mayor in the state of Georgia and in East Point, Mayor Patsy Jo Hilliard. I went and met with Ann Douglas, the first Black woman on East Point City Council. Joe Hextall, the first Black elected to City Council, right? Greg Fan, like the people who paved the way. And it is, that level of respect and that level of gaining knowledge to inform, and then go out and also talk to people about what you can do. So one of the things is I am very intentional about not talking about anybody who's running against me. I don't need to say their name, because if I'm engaging with you, I need you to know about me. So anytime I spend talking about somebody else is, time that I can be talking about you. And there were people that, they asked me questions like, who are you running against? And I'm like, 3 people. And they're like, well, who are those 3 people? They are people in the community. Like literally, they'd have to ask me multiple times. And if I finally said it, it was like, so-and-so, but I'm such and such, and blah, 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 blah. And so you have to be able to articulate to people why you want to serve, what's in it for them, and what are you going to do when you get in office, and in a way that shows that you're a team player. So people make you think that it's about you. And a lot of people say, I. There's no dictator form of government in the US. Like it just doesn't exist. You have to be able to work with people. And so, support is earned. And you can earn it. And it's through your actions, not just your words, it's your actions. And how do you show up, and what do you say, and what do you do?
Cherise, how would you encourage? Thank you so much, Mayor. How would you encourage any woman that may be watching that may be interested in running in the near future? What would you say to them, and how could we support them?
I mean, I would tell them to start off by getting engaged in their local party and other organizations in the community, working and serving. So just like with the Henry County Democratic Women, we have a number of different women who, serve on different committees that are out, being active in the community. And if it's something that you want to do, let it be known so that we can support you. So we have different types of training. Even in this pandemic, we've done a number of different forums, meet and greets, everything to help support women, fundraisers. We've donated to campaigns. We help with trying to find volunteers, even with data. I mean, everything that we've done is to support women who are choosing to run for office, just on a broad spectrum. So again, if that's something that you want to do, reach out to your local party. If you do not have a party in your county, then you can reach out to me because I am over membership for the state of Georgia for the Democratic Women, and we can get an organization set up and going in your county as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And Brenda, I don't want to leave you out. Is there anything that you want to say in closing to encourage, empower women to vote or to run for a political office? Just say something to the people.
Well, I just want to say, in the words of Barbara Jordan, the first Black woman Congresswoman to speak at the Democratic National Convention, she said the stakes are too high for politics to be a spectator sport. No time for us to be on the sideline. You have to get out and vote. Make sure the person you elect is supporting your ideas, has your vision. And if not, maybe you should consider running for office yourself and be the change you want to see.
Beautiful. Well, people, I'm so glad that you joined us for our fire chat this afternoon. I want to thank our wonderful experts, our panelists, for leading us and providing us with so much great resources to help us get out and vote. Please note that one of the things that the National Women's Empowerment Ministry wants you to know, again, is that your vote is your voice. And we need you to get out and vote. We need you to begin having those conversations with your family members that are not registered, that are not interested, even at the dinner table, out to eat, over the phone, whatever you have to do, please make sure that you're encouraging them to get registered and share this information. Share this broadcast on tonight. It is available on YouTube and Facebook. Anyone that you know that needs to hear this information that wasn't sitting here at the chat, please make sure you share it. We are wearing our Empower Women Vote t-shirts on tonight, showing you that that we are walking in agreement, and we're walking in unity, and we're making a statement around the community, letting them know that voting right now is of essence, and it's very important that you engage in this election and elections to come. And we're looking forward to hearing how you're registered and how you vote. People are putting in the chat good stuff. What good stuff. We want to see you voting. And we see me and Brenda, we're sporting our cups. If you are interested, they're pulling them out. We all have our voting mugs. If you are interested in getting any of this voting merchandise, you can go to the National Women's Empowerment Ministry Empower Store. Go to our website. It's rolling right there below you, and you can make your purchase of your Vote Baby Vote shirts. Your vote, we have a partner with a wonderful vendor to get you the vote mugs and also the Empowered Women Vote. We want to make sure that we're rolling in the polls in style. So make sure you go out and get your vote merchandise. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. Please stay connected. If you have any questions, if you would like to connect with any of the panelists on tonight, please send us an email and make sure the information is shared with you. Do you all want to share any of your information?
So Facebook, Mayor Dina Holiday Ingram is the best page for me. There's several, but that's where I post most. Mayor Dina Holiday Ingram. Twitter and Instagram are at Dina Ingram, and also on LinkedIn at Dina Holiday Ingram.
And mine is Therese Hollis, Facebook, Instagram, and also the Henry County Democratic Women. If you would like to join our organization, you can reach out to us there. If you would like to volunteer, even if it's in another county and you need direction on how to get plugged in, you can definitely reach out to me and we can get you plugged in. We have chapters as far as Augusta, and we're working all the way down to Columbus and Valdosta. So covering the state of Georgia. Let's make it happen 2020.
And I'm Brenda Winston at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Well, you guys go out and please reach out to these wonderful panelists. Thank you so much for joining us. You all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. And don't forget, it's not too late to register. Today is National Voter Registration Day, and we want many people registered as possible. So vote, baby, vote. Get out there and vote. The vote matters. Have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.